Smiling. My staff is talking about how their animals are reacting to the music that's being played. So glad to see you all. Welcome back for our final presentation in our January speaker series. I'm Chris Harms, the director of the School Safety Resource Center here in the Department of Public Safety. And thank you for joining us. And please don't forget to complete your evaluation at the end of the presentation. Once that's completed and returned to Melissa Rubio, you will receive a certificate of attendance for your time today. We invite you to put your questions in the chat box, and Margaret Ochoa will monitor the chat and share the questions with our guest. And thank you both Melissa and Margaret. Just a quick reminder that next month on the 16th of February, we will be hosting a virtual workshop on positive school discipline. We have 5 very interesting plenary presentations for you, and the agenda is linked in the registration site. Please take a look and join us. Now I'm going to go right to our presentation today. Dr. Samir Hinduja is a professor in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at Florida Atlantic University. He's also the co-director of the Cyberbullying Research Center and a faculty associate at the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard University. He's recognized internationally for his groundbreaking work on the subjects of cyberbullying and safe social media use, concerns that have paralleled the exponential growth in online communication by young people. He's written 7 books, I don't know how he has time, and his interdisciplinary research is widely published and cited in a number of peer-reviewed academic journals. As a noted speaker and expert on teens and social media use, Dr. Hinduja also trains students, educators, parents, mental health professionals, and other youth workers on how to promote the positive use of technology. He's appeared in national media and has received numerous prestigious awards for his research. He's been presenting here at the School Safety Resource Center for a number of years, and we are always delighted to have him back. So please help me welcome Dr. Samir Hinduja. Samir?
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate being here. You know, the last couple of Tuesdays have been awesome when it comes to Alex Rodriguez and Lynn Reimer. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see recordings, but I think so. And I hope that, you know, you do take the time to catch those if you haven't. My goal in terms of closing out this 3-week series is just to sort of catch up educators and other youth serving professionals about what they can do in order to reduce various forms of online harms. And of course, it ties into offline behaviors as well. And I'll make clear that intersection in just a little bit. But again, thank you to the team. Thank you to Isaac and Chris and Margaret for leading us. And I also want to say that since we don't have hours and hours together, which is, you know, probably a good thing, I want you to know that if I sort of skim the surface of a topic that you want me to provide you with more in-depth resources about, or information or data or stats, I hope that you'll reach out to me. I pride myself in faithfully getting back to anyone who does reach out. And so, for example, when it comes to these slides, if you need a PDF of them, no worries at all. Just go ahead and drop me a note and I'll get them to you. And again, the follow-up resources, there's no need for you to spend time reinventing the wheel, as they say, because if I don't know the answer, and definitely I may not, I probably know someone who does or who can help us to, you know, figure out a solution or a strategy or a policy enhancement or whatever it is. And so, you know, feel free to ask. And bottom line is that we co-labor together about all these issues. So with that said, I'll get started with sharing my presentation, and I will start with a little bit of research because I always think it's important to look at the empirical data to inform our efforts. Otherwise, sometimes it feels like we're just throwing gummy worms against the wall to figure out what sticks. And that's not the best way that you and I should be spending our time and our energies and our monies, you know, to solve problems. So after we briefly look at the research, we'll get into what you're mostly here for, which is, you know, the practical strategies. And as it relates to school climate, there's many of them that are being proven over and over again in schools and school districts across the nation. So with that, just give me a second to share my slides and we'll get started. Perfect. And I will minimize all these windows that I have and get these toolbars out of the way. And then we'll get rolling. First thing I want to do is share with you a picture of my family. This is my silly family. My partner's name is Rachel, and she's over there on the left. And then we have two little ones. Maya is in the middle. She's 4, and she's just so sweet and wonderful. And I'm loving how I get to see her mind at work and her eyes wide open and filled with awe and wonder as she explores and as she just digests everything that she sees. My little boy in the bottom left, his name is Ravi, which is R-A-V-I. It's a popular Indian name if you know any Indian families. And he's only 2, and so he's kind of driving me a little bit crazy. I was chatting with Chris and Margaret about it because, toddlers, and it's okay. Maya was like this as well, but then she sort of burst out of the toddler phase, and she's much easier. And I don't want to look at my kids where it's like, man, I just want you to get to an easier phase. That feels very selfish, and I want them to fully be in this moments that they're in, like in this phase that they're in. For example, my little boy. So as he's making the most of his toddler years, even if it kind of frustrates me sometimes, I still am trying to be fully present and involved and patient. I'm learning so much about patience. Many of you know about that. And I'm growing as a human. So I will take it. Big picture, I will definitely take it. I'm very blessed and grateful for them. Outside of that, I do want to say that I work with youth of all ages. Every weekend I work with elementary schoolers, and then during the week I work many times with middle schoolers and then upper schoolers or high schoolers. So it feels like my finger is always on the pulse of what they're dealing with, and I'm grateful for that. It's not just me sort of in an ivory tower, it's me with boots on the ground, and that's the best part, I think, of my job. As some of you know who have heard me present before, I love to do flash polling because it's just fun and it keeps things interactive. So if you don't mind, can you pick up your phone and open up your camera and go ahead and point it towards the screen? And when you do, what will happen is a web browser will open up, or a link to your web browser will open up. And I just want you to click through. And when you do that, the first poll of the polls that I want to share with you will automatically populate. And you can just respond to that. I'll switch over that in a second. But what I also want to say is that please keep that phone web browser window open through the duration of our presentation, because then the polls that I want to keep showing you, they'll automatically populate and you won't be scrambling for this web address, etc. So this is our first question. And again, if you didn't catch that QR code, it's no big deal. You can always just open up a web browser window on your phone or another device and go to the web address at the top of the screen, which is pollev.com/post. Again, pollev.com/post. All these polls are going to be available there. And again, just keep that browser window open. And forgive all these instructions right now. I won't have to say them again, and things will be a lot more seamless. How many years have you worked in schools? Well, about 1/3 of you don't work in schools, and we seem to have a good proportion of, I might say, those who are relatively new. Definitely 20% who have worked 11 years or more, but a solid 45–50% who have worked less than 10. If you think about how skilled and proficient you are with social media, the internet, various devices, and you compare it to other adults what would you say you are? Again, these polls are available at pollev.com/post. pollev.com/post. Feel free to open it up in any browser window. So a pretty perfect bell curve. You see most of you are average, and then we've definitely got 20% or so who are above average or below average, and then the rest, you're kind of on the fringes, but no big deal if you think you're pretty clueless. It's totally fine because you and I are getting better every single day as we continue to use technology. Here's my last poll for a little bit here. Of course, you might have different areas of concern, but these are the areas that I work on specifically, so I wanted to present them to you. Of these listed, what is your biggest area of current concern? All right, so cyberbullying, about 30%, online well-being, and I'm glad that more and more states are focusing in on that. I know Florida for sure has mandated certain things in law so that school districts can rise up to meet well-being. And then of course, racism, sexism, homophobia, bias-based or bias-motivated harassment is a big deal. And we can talk about maybe other. We'll definitely have time for Q&A a little bit later. All right, let's move on. Before I get into some of these negatives, I simply want to set the table by saying that many youth have embraced social media, whether it's YouTube or various platforms, even gaming platforms and other forums where they can interact, in order to help wrestle with the various trials and tribulations that they face as adolescents, And many youth have embraced these technologies in order to share their stories, stories of resilience, stories of overcoming, whether it's eating disorders or depression or anxiety or dealing with sibling conflict or bringing more attention and awareness to the need of self-care. And I love that it's the youth who are creating these videos and creating these pieces of content, because that's actually what's going to resonate most with other youth. Yes, we as adults, we put out content out there, but again, it's the youth generated content that is going to be so attractive to other youth, because it's like, wow, I can relate to them just in life, and oh yeah, I can relate to them in terms of their issues and their struggles, and they're giving me hope. They're inspiring me that yes, we can push through this, and life can get better. It can definitely get better. So technologies, there are some positives there, even though it is very easy to demonize many of these platforms. And related to research, before I get into the tech aspect, I simply want to provide a bit of a reference point when it relates to school-based bullying. If you look at the second and the third group of bars here, it's 2019 and then 2021, and you can see, again, school-based bullying amongst teens, it's drastically dropped off. What is the reason for that? Well, this data was collected last year, again, 2021. Many students were still in quarantine or dealing with hybrid schooling, et cetera. So it's intuitive that the numbers would be lower. So just keep that in mind. Maybe it's more instructive to look at the difference between 2016 and 2019, where you do see an increase from about 38% to 51% as it relates to youth being targeted at school in the last month. Again, youth targeted at school in the last month, just as a reference point before we get into these tech statistics. And I know Alex, a couple of Tuesdays ago, shared some, but I also wanted to give you a feel for my own research. So when you think about all the various sorts of apps and platforms that are being used, I don't want you to get overwhelmed as an educator or parent or any youth serving adult, thinking to yourself, oh dear heavens, here's another thing that I need to learn about and download to my phone and try to figure out. I can't deal with all of this. I feel that. I know that feeling of being overwhelmed. And so, thinking from the top left, whether it's Twitch or Twitter or Instagram or Snap or House Party or YouTube or WhatsApp or Clubhouse, which is this audio-only platform that became popular during the pandemic, or Discord, PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, and then TikTok. I mean, many of these platforms work pretty similarly, and the harassment also occurs pretty similarly as well. So don't get stressed out about these new technologies or these new apps. Still continue to focus in on the root issues that undergird appropriate behavior, human decency. And as you continue to work on those, as you raise your children or as you shepherd those in your classroom, it will pay dividends both offline as well as online. The second point I want to share is that the vast majority of youth on these platforms, they actually do the right thing. They're not clowning around and trolling on others and being huge jerks and causing problems. Most of them are being relatively respectful or neutral on these platforms. And we just want to continue to encourage those types of behavior. Cyberbullying. So if you look at the second and third group of bars, you see that it's gone up when it comes to victimization from 17% in 2019 to 23% in 2021. You and I can speculate as to what the reason is for that. Is it because of the quote unquote increased screen time over the last couple of years as everyone's just trying to survive and youth are trying to stay connected to their friends who perhaps they're separate from physically and they just need to, again, engage with them. So they do so online, which does lead to the same sorts of dramas that prop up in school and consequently lead to a little bit of harassment here and there and cyberbullying, perhaps. Maybe there's some other reasons. Interestingly, offending or self-reporting of offending over the last month, again, this is over the last month behaviors, they've gone down just slightly from 6.6% to 4.9%. What I think is important to point out though, is that over half, so 50% or so of the students who dealt with cyberbullying in the last month said it deeply affected their ability to learn and feel safe at school. So that matters. We can't trivialize what's going on online and just tell the kids to put down your phone or delete the app and go outside and you won't be struggling so much. No, that's, they're going to tune out if that's the sort of message we're trying to convey because it is their life. We did a study last year involving tweens, a study that had never been done before because most researchers are focused in on teens, but the population of 9 to 12-year-olds has been drastically understudied. And this just gives you a feel that 1 out of 2 have been bullied at school, and about 14% have been cyberbullied. When it comes to the major genders, we have tiny percentages for those who are non-binary and transgender, but it didn't really work in this chart, so you can follow up with me on that later. How did it affect tweens specifically? Well, mostly feelings about themselves, so self-esteem, etc. Friendships, that makes sense. Physical health, that's a big deal. But what I want to point out here is that seems to be affecting girls significantly more so than boys. I mean, if you look at physical health, that's 22%, 1 out of 5, as compared to less than 1 out of 20 of it affecting boys' physical health. So, thinking about culture and climate, when I think about these terms, and I know we have different definitions, we've all perhaps been through undergrad and grad, and they've told us what to say when everyone asks us what's to define about climate and culture, but I always think about various elements coming together in a constellation. Those elements might include connectedness and belongingness and peer respect and school safety and school spirit. I know Randy Ross, a good friend, is on this call, and she's done a lot of great work with the school climate, the National School Climate Center, and they also have just been able to point out so very clearly the incredible and you can't argue with this, that climate matters so much in terms of course, academic achievement, lower issues when it comes to absenteeism and truancy, and of course, less behavioral problems. So all of the work with the National School Climate Center made Justin and I, my colleague, Justin Pachinover at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, curious about the role as it relates to bullying and cyberbullying. So before I share with you my research, I simply want to ask, and this is all anonymous, so please be honest, if you were to rate the quality of climate you created at your school, if again, you're at the school, at a school, or in a district, what would you say you are? And to remind you, these polls are available at pollev.com/post, pollev, poll everywhere, that's the software I use, poll everywhere, pollev.com/post. Okay, so thanks for your honesty. We see almost 70% say poor or average, and about 1 out of 4 say good, so there's room for improvement there. And kudos to those who say great. I know it takes a lot of time, energy, and intentionality. When we studied this as it relates to bullying and cyberbullying and sexting, just to summarize this chart, we found out that students who perceived a poorer or a worse school climate at their school, well, in those schools, there was much more bullying and cyberbullying and sexting. Whereas in schools where students perceived a better or more positive school climate, there was less of these behavioral problems. So that's why it matters, and that's what we're going to focus in on for the rest of our time together. But before I do that, I want to share with you an enhancement of this line of thinking that Justin and I were working on. So first, let me just remind us all about parenting styles, and I'll bring this back to schools in a second. You might remember from your training the work of Diana Baumrind, of McCoby and Martin, who came up with basically these dimensions that occur upon 2 axes related to parenting styles. One axis is disciplinary structure, and that just relates to you and your household, having rules, having expectations, etc. But then emotional support or warmth, the other axis, just involves you and your household or in your home having elements of caring and compassionate and grace and love as you work with your child. And so thinking about these axes, those scholars said that there were 4 parenting styles. One is neglectful parenting, where you're low on discipline and expectations and rules, but you're also low on emotional support and warmth. Then you have permissive parenting, which, and this makes sense, of course, you're high on warmth and support, but you still don't really have any rules or expectations. Authoritarian is high on structure, but low on warmth. And if you've been raised in that sort of environment, you know it's not pleasant at all. And then finally, what they argued was the best type of parenting, authoritative parenting, where we want to have discipline, we want to have rules, we want to have high expectations, believe that our students and our youth are going to rise to those expectations, but then we want to do so in this environment, in this setting that is marked without a doubt by unconditional love, by care, by graciousness, by patience, by remembering that they're learning the ropes, and growing up is very, very difficult, even though we're a couple of decades removed from that. So authoritative parenting is where it's at. So we wanted to study this as it relates to school climate. Are authoritative schools better when it comes to these sorts of behavioral problems and preventing them? And basically, that's what we found. So schools that were authoritative, by and large, they had less cyberbullying offending and bullying offending, which is again what you would see. Where you found the most bullying and cyberbullying offending were in the permissive and neglectful schools. And that's just a trend that continues as we continue to study this. I also thought it was interesting to look at school avoidance. And you're going to have youth when it comes to higher attendance and less issues related to truancy and so forth in schools that are authoritative. Again, high discipline and high warmth and support. And then finally, this will be my last data related chart. You see that schools feel the most safe in authoritative climates, much like I would imagine kids feel the best in households that are authoritative, because yes, they're warm and they're caring and loving, but there's also rules which kind of convey that, look, we're thinking about your future and we care about you so much that we have these rules in place so that you don't screw things up for you unnecessarily. So authoritative parenting, authoritative school climates are where it's at, and all of the suggestions and solutions that follow, they tie into this. So let's get right into it. Thinking of ideas, I first want to say that it's been super challenging over the last 2 years now. It's been a beast, and I want to be gracious towards you, as I know you'd be gracious towards me as an educator and all the things that we've had to deal with. And so with that said, though, I found it interesting that many educators innovated in certain ways during the pandemic to stay connected with their students. Many of those elements or initiatives should absolutely continue even now and moving forward. So some schools came up with Spirit Week, and you can see some examples for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Again, this was initiated when students were at home, so they were using their devices and then posting these pictures or videos using a specific hashtag or tagging an account, which would then all be aggregated within the school's feed, and then everyone could like and comment and just sort of keep up that camaraderie, keep up that connectedness, which is so vital for school climate. Here's another example where they sort of tied in various platforms that the youth were on anyways, whether it's Instagram, Snap, TikTok, etc. And again, asking them to use a hashtag and to post it on the various approved platforms, just to make sure that everyone was still part of a community, still dialoguing, still connecting in various sorts of ways. I don't see the harm in this continuing. And yes, you should have point people at the school who can kind of supervise and make sure that there's nothing ridiculous posted. But by and large, most of the kids use these platforms and these initiatives very positively. And it does help, believe it or not, even though we as adults who don't spend so much time online, at least on these platforms, might not fully get it. Here's an example of an Instagram page, again, created by the school. And so it's sort of like the official Instagram page of this high school. And they use it in order to send out various sort of reminders. You see in the bottom right corner, it says, block the bully. And so just, a reminder that we want to continue to stay vigilant and control our online experiences instead of just subjecting ourselves to it. You can also share various other reminders. And the thing is that many students, maybe even most of the students in your school, they will follow this account. So you can use it as part of your messaging strategy as it relates to all these climate related points: connectedness, safety, spirit, like we're awesome, go Panthers, or whatever they are, etc. Wonder what animal that is. I should probably look at this and try to find out. This principle during the pandemic, every single day, every single day would create a new Instagram video. And during the Instagram video, he would give a shout out to all the students. He would specifically recognize those whose birthdays it was, because the registrar has all that information, and would give them various sorts of reminders and inspirational quotes and just try to get them pumped up for the day. I see no reason why this shouldn't continue. And yes, we might do it during video announcements at the school, but again, kids are constantly online and they're definitely constantly checking social media and their feeds, so you might as well use it against your advantage. I always think about bystanders and how we want them to be upstanders. And this is so tricky because many times they feel stuck in the moment and they don't want to be the one targeted, and maybe they don't have an action plan of what to do, etc. when a situation arises where they should be an upstander. So what's it going to take? How do we get them to rise up? Well, one of the teachable tools that I like has to do with these video series put out by Starbucks called Upstanders. Check it out. There's 2 seasons available for free on YouTube. And they just feature in relatively short clips or stories the stories of various young people, whether it's youth, whether it's young adults, who are doing epic things, legendary things in order to make a difference, whether it's speaking up for the voiceless or bringing attention to some social justice issue or rising up in this way for someone who's being targeted, etc. So I know that we're all busy trying to knock out our lesson plans for the week, but maybe you have some margin here or there to plant some seeds, to show one of these clips and have a bit of dialogue about it. And maybe, just maybe, it will inspire some youth to become upstanders. I also think about anti-bullying clubs. This is one club that I've worked with in Pennsylvania, the It Takes One Club. And I like the name of it because, well, it's a unique name and they're not calling themselves an anti-bullying club because you just can't do that. It's kind of lame. And the point there is that it's just all about a person who's willing to be different, who's willing to stand up for what is justice and what is right, etc. But what I would say in terms of what I've learned when it comes to anti-bullying clubs, ideally, you're able to tap into the platforms that certain student leaders have, certain student leaders who care about this issue, who want to join the club and who can use their platform to get others to be a part. Because if it's just the marginalized kids, it doesn't often gain the traction that we want to see. But these clubs, student-led initiatives, you understand, they're so very powerful, incredible in terms of affecting change on campuses. I remember hearing the phrase, see something, say something, after 9/11. And our kids probably don't know about, well, they weren't there at 9/11, and they perhaps heard, of course, and have been taught about 9/11, but that phrase still has stuck around. It's still used sometimes in airports with TSA, et cetera, and I like it. But I think we should marshal that phrase and use it in our schools as well when it comes to bullying and cyberbullying, if we're not doing so already. And, in Colorado, we've got, of course, Safe to Tell, and that's just a phrase that everyone knows. And, think about anonymous reporting, and this is there for you, and please take advantage of it, et cetera. But tied into that, I think see something, say something is so important, especially because many youth will say, someone else is going to speak up about that. I'm sure it's been brought to the principal's attention already. I got my own life to deal with. And so I don't have time to bring this up and then deal with questioning or whatever. But no, this is so critical because, as we know, and not to be dramatic, it could very well save a life. Purpose pairing. You perhaps have heard this phrase, and it simply means, how are we intentionally partnering an older student with a younger student to show them the ropes, to say, look, welcome to this school. We're so glad to have you here. But these are the expectations we have. These are the social norms we have in place. They won't use that term, but you know what I mean. We believe that we're all about treating everyone equally and respectfully. We're all about embracing diversity and being kind intentionally, looking for opportunities to be a blessing to others, etc. So then the younger student is not hearing it from an older adult who they might tune out or think is lame and uncool, but they're hearing it from an older student who they very likely perhaps want to be like. And so the younger student then also has a point of contact in an older student if that younger student is ever troubled or targeted or has any questions about life or growing up or school stuff, et cetera. They can just go to the older student to not feel uncomfortable trying to identify an adult on campus that they can talk to. So purpose pairing, I think it's a great idea. And I think that you can formalize it because there's so many benefits, the least of which is the older student also grows in leadership skills. I also think about student advisory boards. And yes, you might have asked the opinion of a student here or there to kind of inform what you're doing on campus, but how about you create a formal advisory board? Only students, and they are equipped and empowered to clue you in about issues that are going on campus, unsafe spaces, drama that might erupt into something more severe, such as violence. They will also let you know about devices or apps or platforms that are gaining traction and are causing issues. Maybe it's an anonymous app or something like that. But once you sort of formalize an entity like this, they feel so much more comfortable speaking up, where it's like, hot dog, they want to hear what I have to say. They're looking to me for guidance. And so that consequently leads them to speak up more and more and more, which I promise you will help you. But if we never set up anything formal like this and it's kind of ad hoc and casual, et cetera, then they just feel like adults have got this. They're not really looking to us for solutions. So we're going to keep our mouth shut and just focus on ourselves. Do you have something like this in place? And these polls are at pollev.com/post. Okay, and we can talk about what kind of sort of looks like. But what I'm seeing is it's about 1 out of 3 of you don't really have one out of, there's about, sorry, I'm doing my math in my head. About 2/3 of you where it's like, I'm not really sure here, or no. Actually, 75%. Clearly, I struggle with math. So I also want to say, and some of you have heard this before, so forgive me, but I grew up in theater. I was very introverted, and my parents were like, let's get Samir to break out of his shell and throw him in community theater. It didn't work, of course, but I did love community theater, and to this day, I still do. The story here is that we have youth who've grown up in drama or theater, and they have various sorts of skill sets which they can bring to the table to help us as educators and adults convey certain messages related to climate, related to the culture we're trying to build. For example, if you ask them to come up with some sort of skit or scenario or even a play related to one of these issues that we care about, whether it's texting while driving or digital reputation or sending nudes, etc., or online harassment, bullying, toxicity in gaming platforms, they will come up with something that is so relevant and that deeply resonates with the youth. And if adults tried to do it, I mean, I don't want you to feel condemned, but I think it would largely fail or just really not live up to expectations. But if the students do it again, it's going to be compelling, it's going to be gripping. So enlist their help. We must continue to enlist their help in all sorts of creative ways to help us with all that we're trying to do. I also grew up in dance for the same sorts of reasons, but I also love dance. So I am truly thankful to my folks for putting me in theater and putting me in dance. But many of our kids have grown up in dance. And so can you ask them, for example, to take the time to get together and choreograph a flash mob related to anti-bullying or kindness or something like that? And then all of a sudden, perhaps in the cafeteria, music starts blaring through the speakers, a critical mass of students rise to their feet, and they start dancing in synchronized fashion. And everyone is like, what is going on? And their minds are blown. But right then and there, it gives those students a platform to speak up and out about what they care about. And it resonates and it sticks and it's super memorable. So consider that. So many of us have grown up with various sorts of talents, and they can be used by schools in order to share these various messages. I also think about just caring connections in general. My hope is that if I visited your school and I pulled aside one of the students in the hallway and I said, hey, if you were ever struggling with anything heavy, whether it's you're bombing a class or you're dealing with relationship issues or your parents are always fighting at home or money problems, I mean, can you name one adult here on campus that you would feel comfortable talking to? And if they sort of hem and haw and can't really think of someone, I think we've identified a deficiency which we've got to correct. And maybe you're like, God, dear heavens, we really try to connect with our youth and convey to them that we're available to speak to, but they kind of put up walls and we're not getting anywhere there. But there's got to be something that can be done. And maybe we can talk about it during the Q&A. I think this is so vital that every student has at least one point person on campus. What do you think about this? If you were just to size up the students at your school or the school that you work with, are they extremely willing to talk to adults about their offline or online problems? Okay. And again, I want to be gracious to you because at the college level, I mean, I try to convey that I'm always available for them and I care about not just how well they do in my class, but mentally, like mental health type stuff and well-being type stuff. And even then, there's reasons why they don't talk to me. So perhaps we're doing our part, but just something for us to be thinking about. You've also seen a lot of kindness movements recently. And I think that's great because you'll agree with me, it's not enough for youth to not do the wrong thing. We absolutely need them to look for opportunities to do the right thing. I mean, me as an adult, I'm always looking for opportunities to say a kind word or smile at someone who I feel could use a smile. And it might sound a little bit lame, but as an adult, it absolutely matters because I don't know, that sort of stuff just kind of, it carries us through many days. So you've seen this on social media, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Instagram, et cetera, these compliments pages. This is just one example from almost 10 years ago that we have at my university. And the page is still in existence because the graduating seniors just pass it on to the incoming class to just give these anonymous shout outs to various students and sometimes staff and faculty. But again, we want our students to come up with various ways to use social media in in a positive light, like in a way to shine a spotlight or to give kudos to various other students, to just help them, just to raise their spirits, just to brighten their day. Some of you follow the Humans of New York page on Instagram, and you understand that the creator goes around New York and tells the story of various New Yorkians. And the story isn't about like success. It's pretty much about resilience and overcoming. And what I love about that is that it's given the idea to many schools to come up with their own Humans of blank blank page. Down here in South Florida, we have Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, which you know a few Valentine's days ago had to deal with the horrific tragedy of a school shooting. And so subsequently, they came up with the Humans of MSD page, and they feature stories of various youth. And I would imagine that most of the students follow this account. And if a story is shared, maybe you don't know this kid, but you're a student, you're like, my goodness, I can't believe they're going through that. Or, wow, I can really relate to the pain that they felt because I felt the same sort of way. And it just sort of opens up opportunities for connection and for dialogue. Maybe you give them a bit of a head nod in the hallway. Maybe you just say, hey, and it strikes up a conversation in the cafeteria or between classes with this kid, because again, you've identified a point of commonality. You know how Brene Brown talks about it's our vulnerabilities that bring us together? Well, these sorts of accounts really allow for that to come to light. And I think it's a good thing. And I think it does cultivate empathy. We also need to spend time being very intentional about sharing positive stories of youth and young adults doing epic things in their communities. I've collected all of my favorite videos, which feature the stories that I'm going to share with you in just these single image formats. So if you want, just drop me an email and I'll send you my favorite videos, which you can use as teachable tools with your students. But in this specific photo, we have Caitlin Hackey, who came up with what's called Positive Post-it Day, where she just wrote on thousands of Post-it notes and put them on lockers all around her school with encouragements, with complimentary statements designed to lift the spirits of her fellow classmates. We have Cameron Remis here, who, I kid you not, at the age of 13, learned how to sew and is able to create these stuffed animals, and then goes into children's hospitals with these stuffed animals and gives them to the kids with diseases, some even terminal diseases, to just bring a little bit of hope, bring a little bit of joy to them. At 13, like that is so inspiring. This is, give me a second here, Birmingham, Alabama. I'm picturing him and his name is, just give me 1 second, it's gonna come to me. Blast, it will come to me in a second. But anyways, he's 4 and he goes around and he cares about the homeless in his community. And he decides that any sort of like holiday money or birthday money or whatever, he wants his dad to help him spend on chicken sandwiches. And then he goes around and he hands out these chicken sandwiches to the students, sorry, to the homeless population in his community. And so what I wanted to say about students is that I use this specific story with elementary schoolers. And I'm like, if a 4-year-old is so inspired to make a difference in his community by trying to be a blessing to the homeless population with chicken sandwiches and hugs and statements of kindness, I'm sure you can come up with something. It's coming to me, it's coming to me. It'll come to me later. This is Sonica Minon, and she cares about a population which is also on my heart because I feel like they're very neglected. It is those in assisted living facilities, in nursing homes, etc. And she understands that those who are older, they have incredible stories and words of wisdom to share. And we don't want them to think they're forgotten. And so I kid you not, she organizes these incredible birthday parties for these elderly residents of these homes. And she celebrates them and hears their story and gets people to come and just sort of acknowledge the contributions that they've made and continue to make with their lives. And I love that. This is Austin Gutwine, and he heard a story back in the day about children who'd lost their parents to AIDS, and that really touched him. And so he loves basketball and wanted to come up with some sort of campaign involving shooting free throws, just so many of them over the course of the day. And every one of them that he made would raise money. And Hoops of Hope is now like this international thing where so many people around the world participate in it to raise money for children whose parents have passed away, for example, in Africa, as it relates to various diseases, such as AIDS. This is Max Bobholtz. He loves baseball. And a few years ago, Uganda Little League finally made it to the Little League World Series. And he was just so excited about this, but then he saw that they had kind of crappy equipment and uniforms. And he was like, this is ridiculous. They should have so much better than this. So he organized a drive of getting various Little League teams in America to donate their gently used equipment, which was still so much better than the Ugandan team's equipment. And then, I kid you not, he flew over to Uganda multiple times and of course shipped this stuff over there, taught those kids how to play baseball, blessed them with this equipment, and just created this organization all focused in on improving the lives of others and improving their ability to use equipment and have what they need to enjoy sports. The organization is called Angels at Bat. Bottom line, we really want to, that kid's name is Austin Pirine. Finally, it came to me from Birmingham, Alabama. We want to make sure that we're sharing these positive stories with youth because I really feel that youth are surveying the landscape looking to be inspired. I mean, I'm always looking to be inspired. You're probably looking to be inspired as well, which is why you watch certain movies, which is why you read certain books, etc. And so with that, let's share these stories with them. Again, feel free to drop me a note and I'm happy to send you videos that relate all these stories. Here's my question in poll format. How do you do when it comes to sharing positive stories in order to inspire and motivate your own students or your own children? So some of us are definitely doing a decent job here, which is awesome. I just don't want us to lean so far in the direction of sharing those horror stories, those cautionary tales, those things we hear about in the news to kind of frighten our own students, because at a point, the kids just roll their eyes and they can't really connect with those stories. They feel like it's just never going to happen to me. They have that invincibility mindset. Of course, that's short-sighted. We know it very well can happen to them, but we need a good balance of the cautionary tales as well as the inspiring stories. Pledge campaigns have been useful. And so we've seen some schools come up with the focus on like, all right, maybe we can get them to pledge that they will be kind or not bully. But you just want to make sure that if you set something like this up, that you have the students agree to it because they understand the weight and the gravity of what they're committing to. And that's tough, right? We live in this very relativistic world. It's hard for kids and even adults to make commitments to do something on the weekend because maybe something better will come along. So, pledges are kind of hit and miss, but maybe there's a way to, again, use this as long as they understand what they're committing to. How are we connecting with students outside of the school walls? I hang out with college students on the sports fields. And, a few years ago, we won our ultimate Frisbee intramurals. It was the first time that I won intramurals after many, many years. And it was just a big deal in my life. But my point with this is that on the Frisbee field and the soccer field, et cetera, students are much more comfortable opening up to me. Like on the sidelines as we're just like hanging out and chatting, they tell me about their life and their dreams and their hopes and their relationships. And I'm able to speak into their life and I'm able to invest in them. And I kid you not, I've been invited to and have gone to multiple weddings simply because of students that I've met on these sports fields, not any students that have actually taken one of my classes. Just because, again, you've got that sort of laid back environment in which connections and meaningful dialogue can take place. I know many of us have families. I have a family too. It's hard because after school, you're just whipped. You want to go home and have dinner and just kind of like chill for a little bit. But this is an opportunity to, again, create that positive school climate. Then I think about these various campaigns that we've seen involving poster contests. Here's an example involving lower schoolers or elementary schoolers where we just ask them to come up with some sort of anti-bullying poster. If they're older students, maybe they come up with a public service announcement. In this case, one related to cyberbullying. This one related to dating violence and toxic text messages. Here's one related to sexting. If you just take the time to get on YouTube and do searches, so for some of these topics and then the keyword PSA, you'll find a bunch. And maybe you can use them as examples to inspire your own students in an activity-based situation to come up with something. Number one, it gets them involved. It gets them to use their creativity and intellect to create content. And then secondly, you can use that content, whether it's on your district webpage or social media feeds, etc. And that just helps to, again, get everyone on board with the messages you're trying to inculcate. I'm a big fan of Jimmy Kimmel's National Unfriend Day. And every year it's, in November. And the thing is that maybe even you and I, but especially our kids, they just feel like it's a popularity contest when it comes to all these friend requests and follower requests that come in, and they just accept. Not a lot of discretion is being shown when it comes to accepting friend and follower requests. But unfortunately, that's then opening up their profiles and their lives, because they truly do share a lot online with people that they don't fully know and don't fully trust. So the argument is, on National Unfriend Day, you go through your friends list, you go through your followers list, and you unfriend and unfollow people that you don't really care about, that you're never going to really talk to again, that just you don't trust, And so I just think that's such a wise practice, even for adults, even though you and I might feel a little bit of hesitancy because we don't want to stir up unnecessary drama with. I just honestly last week unfriended a coworker on Instagram, and I don't even know why I had this coworker as friends on Instagram, because I just really like to keep personal and professional separate. But for some reason, she was a follower, and so I unfriended her, because that's just how I feel, and I want to own my life, and I don't want to feel all this pressure from other people to act in certain ways, because we have to own our lives. There's autonomy and agency, which is there for us, and we want our youth to also do the same thing, because otherwise, unwittingly, they open themselves up for victimization. Consider formalizing National Unfriend Day later this year. Project-based learning. I think about one of my favorite people in the entire world from history, Benjamin Franklin, and he has this really cool quote which says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn." Involve me and I learn. I love that. So again, project-based learning, it pays dividends because we're getting them involved. So what does this look like related to what we're talking about? Well, first off, on our website, we have these digital citizenship activities. There's 10 of them, and I understand this font is super tiny and you can't really read it. But maybe during the Q&A, I'll have a moment to paste a web address in the box, but you'll find it easily on our website under resources and then educators in the navigation menu. But these are our favorites, and I would say that none of them are lame. I would say that I'm proud to recommend each of them to you. Consider these digital citizenship activities. I'm also a big fan of the work of Dr. Kristen Matheson, and she came up with these would you rather flashcards, but focused in on digital citizenship. We all love the would you rather game, like would you rather die in a fiery volcano or freeze to death on an iceberg in Antarctica? I think the latter for me, but here are some related to digital citizenship, and these are just 6 out of so many more. You can easily Google them and find them online. If you have trouble, let me know. But the point is that we want to initiate additional dialogue with our students, with the kids in our home, related to these tech topics. And from them, from these very sort of innocuous vanilla type flashcards, you can then over time ask them more probing questions. Ask the questions that give you a better clue or insight into their online experiences. Do you have some sort of comprehensive digital citizenship program in place, at least for an entire grade of students, if not all students? Just curious. And again, I know it's tough. We want to do so much. SEL, conflict resolution. I'm trying to think, like there's so much more that we want to do in schools, but we don't have the margin. But maybe there's more we can do in this area. How are we reaching students at the beginning of each school year to set the tone? Maybe we do it on a classroom by classroom basis, but I think it's very valuable to do so en masse, the entire school. And maybe not every student fits into the auditorium at one time, but maybe you could have 3 sessions or something. But I really think that if you do this en masse, it conveys to everyone that, look, we are all in this together and we count on each other in order to have a positive school climate where, yes, we believe the best about you and we believe you can rise up to these expectations because you're not a toddler anymore. You're not an immature juvenile. You're someone who is set up for success, and you're going to be making decisions which will lead to that success. And we're here to help you. We are in your corner, your biggest fans, your cheerleaders. So let us know what we can do to assist you. So consider doing this again all together in some sort of capacity. And please let me know if you already do. And my school safety center colleagues, I am keeping an eye on the clock. And so I'll be wrapping up here in relative short order so we have time for Q&A. Okay, interesting. So 1/3 of you say yes, definitely. Screenshots. This is just an important reminder that I want to convey to you. We know how to take a screenshot on our phone. I have to believe all of you do, but hopefully you also know and can pass this on to your students or the kids in your household how to do so on PlayStation, on Xbox, on Kindle, on iWatch, because many times we need the digital evidence. The school needs the digital evidence in order to do their investigation. The sites or platforms need the digital evidence in order to exact some sort of penalty, like banning a person from a platform or some other sort of solution there. But apart from screenshots, we need screen recordings. Hopefully you know how you can set up screen recordings in the control center on an iPhone. And that's so very important. On Android, you can do so as well. It's in the 3rd row and 3rd column on the left side of the screen. But there's also a screen recorder app on the right side of the screen. The point is that, as you all know, we've got Insta stories, TikTok videos, live streams, which are videos, Facebook lives, Facebook, are they called Facebook stories? I can't really remember. Insta stories, I might've said that already. Snapchat stories or Snap stories, etc. So it's video content, and we need screen recordings of that, not just a screenshot of one of the frames. That doesn't really help us when it comes to the evidence that we need. So we have a document on our website which just shows you how to take screenshots and screen recordings. And so consider using that or spreading it around to make sure that every student knows how to do this. And here's a quick video I wanted to share with you. It's just encouraging for me to see more and more youth speaking up about what's right and what's wrong, and trying to convey lessons to other student bodies, to other youth who are out there. Here we go.
Oh, hey, thanks for the death threat. I checked out your profile, but it looks like you're anonymous on this account. So I decided to check out your Instagram. But you made the mistake of connecting your personal Instagram to your anonymous TikTok account. But no worries, I saw that your name is Noah, so I looked you up on Facebook. The suicide prevention hotline number is pretty ironic considering you just told me that you wanted to kill me. You also included your username in your Facebook bio, so I know that that Instagram account is you, and I know that you are that anonymous TikTok account now. I don't think FedEx wants their employees threatening to kill people, especially when they have access to people's addresses. Anyways, FedEx, just thought you should know that one of your employees is a sociopath who threatens people online from an anonymous account.
So I just think it's so cool that she's reminding everyone about the fact that everyone leaves a digital footprint or digital breadcrumb trail, or however we want to conceptualize it. But it's true. And there are people who will spend time looking to out you if you're being a troll, if you're being a misogynist, if you're being racist in any capacity. And hopefully on some level that will deter those who have a relatively sensitive conscience. I don't think it's going to deter everyone, but you hope that most people perform this rational calculus before they engage in improper behavior online. I mean, hopefully that's the case, especially with our students. And again, hopefully it does deter them. I think it's still important to continue to work with students, and sometimes it's necessary to have assemblies. Maybe you've done that. Perhaps they've worked, perhaps they haven't worked, but oftentimes having a third party, an external individual, whether it's from the school safety resource or school safety center or another entity, I just think it's valuable because it's just a fresh face with a different type of message. And they probably do so in a way where they don't preach or lecture. I mean, they do. They don't preach or they don't lecture, and they're able to convey a certain point to get kids to be thinking about these sorts of things and keeping the most important points top of mind. So do you have someone come in from, let's say, the safety center or another entity to help you with assemblies or trainings, or even just to review your policies, compare it to other policies to make sure you don't have any gaps there, which could lead to reputational or legal liability, etc. I just think it's useful because I mentioned at the very onset, we're all working together to bear fruit in these areas. And I appreciate the honesty at the bottom there. We're just like, yeah, I mean, we're just trying to survive, and we're tyranny of the urgent and all that. If we had a little bit of space and margin to plan, we might do something like this, but it's not possible right now. I get it. On our website, we have a ton of scenarios, and research shows that scenarios are key for helping our youth develop, again, action plans. Because when they see bullying or cyberbullying harassment, and they haven't really thought through what to do, whether it happens to a friend or themselves, they get stuck. They feel paralyzed, so to speak. And we don't want that. And so you could share with them one of the 23 scenarios I've written and have posted on a resource on our website, and ask them the follow-up questions, which again allow you to facilitate communication and dialogue, make sure they know what to do, make sure they know who to go to, make sure they know what not to do. And maybe they'll be even more open to you down the road because you've been able to engage with them about something that's very relevant to them, such as their online lives and various platforms. My scenarios cover the spectrum when it comes to cyberbullying, digital dating abuse, sexting, et cetera, threats. So consider using them. We're really proud of them. I think they're great. And again, research shows that they're very valuable in terms of reducing these problem behaviors. You've heard the term that we all need to be trusted adults, and I want you to be, but I also want you to be askable adults, because students are also looking around to find adults that they can talk to, that they can open up to. Those adults, they're going to be calm and rational and reasonable and laid back and not all like wide-eyed and fear-mongering and a bit crazed about these sorts of things. The students need advice, the students need input, the students need guidance and shepherding. So be that askable adult and identify yourself as an askable adult so kids know where to turn. And then, of course, you're trying to reach parent groups. That's tough because sometimes you organize a parent event and nobody shows up and you're like, dear heavens, if they would just have been coming to these parent events in all the years past that we've offered them, maybe we would have avoided this current incident or this current tragedy or whatever it is. But it's tough and we got to incentivize their attendance or figure out some other ways to get them to show up. But if you could just be honest with me, how well do you feel like y'all are doing when it comes to partnering with parents? And then we'll get real close to wrapping up. And I really don't want you to feel indicted. I truly know how difficult this is. Okay, so we've got 17% who say good or great. It's so challenging. Maybe during our Q&A, we might brainstorm some solutions. And then anonymous reporting system, I mentioned safe to tell. We just want to make sure that we continue to remind youth about it, about anonymity, about the fact that they're protected, about the fact that we need them to serve as our eyes and ears, because they can serve such a helpful role if they just let us know what's going on. So continue to remind them about safe to tell. And then here's my last major point. When I was growing up, I was a Silverhawk. That was my high school, the Lake Howell Silverhawks. And so we were always told in various informal fashions that we were supposed to like soar above and rise up, you know, all these different sort of metaphors related to our behavior. So that's great, right? And the thing is that it's sunk in. I wanted to be a Silverhawk. I was proud of my school. I was proud of our football team and et cetera, et cetera. I wanted to represent the qualities that were emblematic of our school. So bottom line is we're trying to convey like, this is just what we do around here because we're the Cardinals or the Trojans or the Silverhawks. This is just part and parcel of who we are. It's our identity to do the right thing, the noble thing, the classy thing, the mature thing. And we're moving from, I shouldn't do that because, oh, I could get detention or I could get Saturday school or I could get suspended, to I wouldn't do that because of who I am, because I'm a Silverhawk. So yeah, just constant reminders about these sorts of things, like who we are, what we represent, what we're all about. And it isn't like classes where we're like all the other schools in the district, they're crap, but we're elite. Nothing like that. Nothing where we tear down other schools, but just like we have risen up to this set of standards, this expectations of maturity, of appropriate behavior. And doing so, we know it's going to set us up for success down the road. So that's why we do it. I really encourage you to continue to tie in your efforts into identity, because we know adolescents, they're looking for identity. They want to be a part of winning identities. And so you can tie that into their behavioral practices as well. What do you believe? And let me just clear the poll real quick before you all answer. Maybe load it up quickly for a second. What do you all believe should be the top priority as we move forward to combat these issues? And I know there's many other things that we could focus in on, but these are the areas that I focus my own efforts on. If we had a whole another hour together, I could talk specifically only about empathy. If we had a whole another hour together, I could specifically talk only about resilience strategies. And of course, social emotional learning, etc. These are the areas that Justin and I work on. And by the way, many of you as well, those of you who are on this call, and I'm grateful for that. We're continuing to row in the same direction, and we're getting there. I want you to be encouraged. So thank you for participating in my polls. Thank you for just hanging out this afternoon or midday with me, and I will stop sharing my slides. And I'll post my contact information in the chat window, I'm sure, but it's very easy to get a hold of me. I appreciate your time and your attention, and I'll turn it over to our team.
Margaret?
Thank you so much. Yes, thanks, Chris. Thank you, Samir. I'm getting lots of comments in the chat about how much they appreciate overall the presentation, but your strengths-based approach. And that's exactly why we wanted you to be here, because we think that leaning in is the way to connect with kids rather than setting up a list of rules, as you so aptly stated earlier. One of the questions that came in is, can you share your ideas as to how to provide some of the realities of negative social media and what parents can do to help their child make smart choices and to help parents to learn more about technology without freaking out and becoming untrusting? So it kind of goes to your message earlier about how do we work with parents as partners and keep them positive about all this?
Yeah, the first thing that I would say just has to do with your demeanor to your youth when it comes to these issues, because it's very easy to get panic stricken and to convey, even just simply through your body language, judgment and criticism and even blame. And I know that you wouldn't really mean to do that, but sometimes it still happens, perhaps because of the unfamiliarity of the platform, or again, what you're hearing, whether it's from on nextdoor.com or on your Facebook groups or whatever it is like that, about what's happening in the social circle and in other districts, etc. So I really want you to try to be non-judgmental and just to have discussions, pro-social discussions about how your youth are loving tech and social media, what they're really enjoying, how it's benefiting them relationally, socially, educationally, except, in terms of their communication needs, etc. And as they understand that you're not looking to pin them against the wall related to their tech use, they will over time perhaps be a little bit more open, because you're able to say in the same breath, hey, if you ever dealt with anything that makes you feel a little bit creeped out or uncomfortable or weirded out, I hope that you're comfortable chatting with me about it, and know that, hey, I'm not going to blame you, and I'm not going to just fly off the handle and call up the school and make this a huge deal so that everyone targets you. Like, that's not my intention at all. In fact, I would want to sit down with you very calmly and discuss your perspective and what you would like to see happen in this situation when you're dealing with some sort of incident. And so just in terms of all of that, the hope is over time, they will start to share a little bit more about what they're doing online. I've also seen success where youth might go to the favorite dessert place, whether it's Baskin Robbins or Krispy Kreme or Starbucks, and get a favorite beverage, with the parent or guardian and then the child, and then go over to a table. And while you're enjoying the favorite beverage or dessert, you have a phone open and you just kind of like scroll over to the apps, and you might ask your child, like, what's this app? And hey, I'm just curious about it. I'm not looking to be in your business and go through your messages or anything like that at this point or today. I just want you to tell me, like, what are you loving about it? And then again, it just allows the adults to get a little bit more comfortable about what the kids are doing online, because they're probably comfortable with what the kids are doing offline, but they're just kind of not in the know when it comes to what they're doing online. And the last part of the question, I think, has to do with, we don't want them to make mistakes. We don't want them to sully their reputation and be judged and miss out on an opportunity because of that. We don't want them to do something that they regret, in terms of someone is deeply emotionally harmed because they posted something sarcastic or caustic. And so in those situations, I hope that if you can, when you're if you're watching a show together, or if you're watching a movie together, or just any social situation you see at the mall or at the skating rink that crosses over a line, I hope that you just use that and you call it out and you're like, holy crap, that was unacceptable. You got to agree with me, right? Like, that was way uncool. And don't fill in all the gaps and don't get super preachy, but just so that you call out that that was wrongful and that crossed a line. And then you might be able to also talk about, okay, online, what would this look like? And we really are trying to make sure that you're set up for success. And this is a hyper competitive society. And we really want to make sure that you get every opportunity that's due you based on how hard you're working, but so quickly that can be sabotaged. And so just again, over time, not immediately, not because you just came to this webinar, but over time, you're able to slowly but surely introduce those lines of thinking into your child's life.
Thank you so much. And that's consistent with the cyber safety training that we do at the center. I love your ideas and we'll continue to incorporate them. I have one question, but before I ask it, I want to just make sure that everybody sees Randy's post in the chat with respect to some research and normalizing with respect to social media. And my question for you, Samir, is that in teaching cyber safety, I have found it very difficult to find illustrative videos that are not victim blaming. Do you have any suggestions on where to find any better material?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've compiled a handful that I really like. And so perhaps, we can send those around. Happy to do so. It's tricky. And I agree with you. The victim blaming is a big deal. And then the targets don't ever want to speak up because, they picture themselves in those roles. That's the opposite of what we want to try to do here. So let's try to continue to share the resources that I've compiled and others have as well. If you have any recommendations of videos that you have used in your school or in your community that you really do like and that will resonate well and that are not victim blaming, I would encourage you to share it. And I'll also take a quick moment to build on what Randy has said in the chat, because she mentions the term social norming campaigns. And I think that's a huge deal. I had to pick and choose what I wanted to share, but research is very clear that when you set norms about what kids and teenagers are doing and not doing, it really opens the eyes of so many other students. And here's the example. The example would be many students might say, if you were just to casually ask them, that bullying, it's just a part of growing up, and everyone's got to go through it, and you just got to kind of deal with it. They might also say, don't ever go to an adult because it's just going to backfire on you. You can't trust any adults. But when you actually collect data from students, you find out that the vast majority are against cyberbullying. They don't believe it's a normative part of adolescent development. And they also want to speak up to adults. They believe it's the right thing to do to speak up to adults. There's no code of silence that's shared across the entire student body. So what you're doing there is you're sharing the actual numbers with the students. And you're like, you know what? The vast majority of kids are all about kindness and peer respect and speaking up to adults and intervening, maybe not at that moment, but afterwards, encouraging a kid who's been targeted to make sure that they're okay, checking in with them, etc. So social norming, again, is sharing the norms of like, this is actually what's most prevalent across our student body. We just want you to get on board with the rest of us, with the majority of us.
And I would encourage educators that are on the call to take a look at the Healthy Kids Colorado survey data, because that also supports what you're saying with respect to how much children, or I should just say youth generally, rely on their trusted parents and other adults in their lives when it comes to getting questions answered about these important issues. I am going to turn it back over to Chris, and with my thanks again, Samir, for just helping us today so much. Appreciate you, and I feel empowered.
Thank you, Margaret. And of course, thank you so much, Samir. Yes, we always get great information when you join us. So we really appreciate that you're with us today. Please complete your evaluation so that you can get your certificates. Thank you all for being here, and we hope to see you February the 16th for Positive School Discipline. Have a good rest of your day and rest of the week. Thank you.